to Super-Duper Woo-Fighting Duo with Capes, Episode 9. I'm Reese, I'm Marianne, and as you can probably tell, that was not Marianne. Marianne is away for this introduction recording, and for the outroduction recording. Yes, I just made that word up. Outroduction is not actually a word, as far as I know. Anyway, so today we've got Hayley Stevens and Alan Hess, and we shall be talking to them both about various skeptic-y things. I would like to ask you for a small favour, as a sort of thank you gift, or whatever, to us for our podcast. If you enjoy the podcast, and you subscribe using iTunes, or, you have an iTunes account, would you please leave a review or rating, preferably a review though, as you can include what you like about the podcast. But if you're a rating kind of person, then go ahead and rate us instead. But enough of my incessant ramblings about ratings and reviews and pretending to be Marianne, and on with this week's episode. So, Marianne and I are here today, and we're talking with Alan Hess from the Nightingale collaboration. Say hello.
Hello.
That was very commanding of you.
I do as I'm told.
Be nice to the guestry, so they won't come back.
Oh, damn it. Why didn't you tell me these things before?
Well, obviously I give you too much credit.
You haven't read the manual, have you?
Manual.
Exactly.
Broadcasting manual. I don't know.
Damn. Oh, there's the ambulances.
I'm sorry, I live in London and it's noisy.
So, shall we talk about homeopathy?
Why not?
Indeed.
It's certainly topical, isn't it? Yes.
Well, yes, with the homeopath's appearances on Newsnight.
Yes. Very interesting, that, wasn't it? It's very strange, and it's very difficult to put yourself in the position of the people there who presumably fervently believe in what they said. I don't doubt that they don't believe what they're saying. And have you ever tried to put yourself in their position and think, who are all these people, these big pharma? No, I won't use that word. Who are up against us? Why don't they see what we see? Why don't they believe in homeopathy? I can't do that. Other than thinking, they must have this. It's been obviously deeply ingrained in them that homeopathy works and it does all the things that they claim. That they don't think they're making it up.
Well, she can pick the numbers out of the air that it's 60 to 65% effective.
Yeah, that was a bit odd. I mean, she was admitting that the homeopathy was less effective than the standard conventional anti-malaria.
Yes, which she picked out the year end as well, yes. Well,
yeah, I mean, odd to me that she would have chosen numbers less than that. I think we should just state for clarity that we're talking about a woman on Newsnight, and she was being
secretly filmed.
Yeah, secretly filmed, and she said that she was plucking numbers out of the air, and she said, well, conventional anti-malarial drugs might be 70% effective, and whereas homeopathic ones might be 60 to 65.
Presumably on top of that, she was thinking, well, of course, homeopathy is far, 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 far safer. Therefore, It's worth the small drop in effectivity. But what can you imagine? What do you think? How was she told? What makes her believe that that it is even 65% effective?
I guess she's invested in the whole system. So it's her job, and she sees people come to her and seeing them get better, even if they're just getting better, because that's what people do. She's ascribed that to this service she's providing, and as you say, is invested in it. So
I assume for the malaria one, it's not that they're getting better; it's just they're not catching malaria when they go abroad.
Or maybe
are they not?
Maybe
though,
they're not coming
obviously
back.
A lot of people do.
Maybe they die and she never sees them again. So
yeah, maybe.
Morbid. Yeah, and then of course there was the homeopathic pharmacy as well, wasn't there?
Ainsworth's, yes.
And they were selling. I think, isn't that where the woman was based?
I don't think that was said.
No, I think
the
that was
path was North London.
Right.
Ainsworth is in central London somewhere. I can't quite remember where. I suspect it wasn't. Although you're thinking about it, it certainly wasn't clear.
No. So yeah, Ainsworth, and they were selling homeopathic remedies for malaria, yellow fever,
typhoid, TB, all sorts.
Yeah, and they were basically rehashing the homeopathic vaccination thing, weren't they, as well?
But they said there wasn't evidence for it. There was only anecdotal evidence.
Yeah, but then they seem to think that that's fair enough. That's the scary thing. It's like, well, we gave this kid homeopathic remedies for TB, and they didn't get TB.
Therefore, it works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the thing is, they don't seem to realise that you need to do the experiments on more than one person, and control them to see if it does work or not.
I mean, that's the crux of the problem, isn't it? They don't understand bias. They don't see. Of course, they are completely independent. They see it with their own eyes. Therefore, it must be the case. They don't understand experimental bias and other such things that cloud the issue rather a lot. Even when they're the best of intentions, experimenters can be biased, and the results can be completely wrong.
It's difficult, though, isn't it, to apply this best of intentions to people like the woman of the regulatory council who was on, who really should understand all that kind of thing, and yet when confronted and asked, should you not explicitly say you cannot sell these things because there is no evidence for them, she just dodged the question.
Yeah, she weaseled her way out. I think she said, we do not endorse it, which isn't saying we do not support it and we tell them not to. It's a very different thing.
Sorry, I'm just realised my Twitter is occasionally beeping, so I'm just going to switch to send off. Okay, sorry, you can maybe edit that bit out. Okay, that should stop it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I almost started to feel sorry for her momentarily, because it must be a very scary position to be in. But on the other hand, how can you not take responsibility for that?
It's not as if that's the first time she's heard those criticisms. And obviously on their website they've got various things, but they just don't. I don't know what it is. They just can't get their mind round the criticisms that there are. They think they're right, and they'll, as you said, Marianne, they'll stick to them. They're not going to change their minds because it's been I hesitate to use the word indoctrinated, but that's the kind of thing I think that they're very focused on that, and nothing is going to persuade them otherwise.
And Ben Goldacre tweeted afterwards that they'd been sent all of the information from the secret filming and all the transcripts and everything.
I found that very interesting, because I think when Simon Singh said, he said, well, we sent you everything and you didn't do anything about it. And she said, oh, well, of course we're not going to work on an edited, an edited clip, biased or something along those lines. And then afterwards Ben tweeted and said, well, actually, no, they were sent absolutely everything. They were sent the transcript, the unedited video clip and everything, and yet they still didn't do anything about it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not necessarily saying I'm sympathy with that particular case, as Ben said. They were sent everything. A regulator has to be very careful what it does investigate, and needs to be sure it's working with solid evidence. However, if they were sent the transcripts and everything, there is a pretty good case to answer, I would have thought.
Yeah, exactly. And so
at least do some kind of investigation, not just to
they didn't do anything.
If that was a statutory regulator, then they would, from apart, if you look at people like the General Chiropractic Council and the other medical, can you see the quotes there? regulators, and that includes the GMC and the General Dental Council and the other ones. They have a statutory duty. Whenever somebody complains, they have to investigate it, and quite rightly so. They can't on whim dismiss it out of hand. Obviously, I'm sure the GMC and the GDC and everybody else, they get lots of complaints where they start to investigate it, and it goes to the investigating committee, and the investigating committee decide there is no case to answer.
Exactly.
And that's fine, but at least they've gone through the process. There may be questions about the transparency of that process, but at least it's written into the rules. This is what they must do, and they've got to go to the stage. And only when they decide that, it's not a vexatious complaint, it's not somebody who's made something up who's after insurance money or something for something gone wrong. If they're convinced it's a genuine complaint and there is something that needs further investigation, then they pass it on to their professional conduct committee or whatever the equivalent is to investigate properly and do properly, conduct properly. Whereas with a lot of these voluntary regulators, they seem to have a code of practice of some sort which maybe says some nice things about protecting the public and things like that, but in practice, if they aren't seen to be enforcing it and don't enforce it properly, then they have even less credibility than they had to begin with.
Yeah.
What I find strange about these regulatory bodies for stuff like homeopathy and chiropractic and that kind of thing is, it's something that there's no evidence for it working anyway. So to go for a job like that, you need to already believe that it works and that it's a real thing. Like, how do you regulate something that's not even a thing? I don't.
Well, that was one of the big. Well, exactly. That's one of the big criticisms of Ofquac, the Complementary Natural Healthcare Council, and they don't understand it either. They don't have a clue as to what all their different disciplines, as they call them, are, or what they do. They've written some stuff down about what I've forgotten what they call them now. There's a sheet or two sheets on each thing, what you can expect, but it's the same wishy-washy stuff, which all it can be, of course. But it doesn't really define what each of them is, and therefore, if you can't define it, how can you control it? That's the usual kind of thing, and there is no good answer to that.
One thing that I find interesting, particularly about the Society of Homeopaths, is it the Society of Homeopaths that has the code of ethics that even they don't stick by? Or is that the faculty?
That could be the case, yes.
I think it was someone, one of the two said, we don't support, making direct claims about illnesses. And then I think they made this whole range of direct claims, like homeopathy can treat asthma and blah, 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 and things like that. And, breaking their own code of ethics that they've set is a little bit bad.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, if you one of the things about the Society of Homeopaths, which I did tweet last night, was they published 2 adjudications on their website.
Yeah.
One was dated 13th of February 2008, and the second one was 13th of July 2009. Now then, it may be that they've had other ones, but that's the only 2 they're advertising. It's less than 1 a year. Maybe they've got lots of. Maybe they don't get any complaints, of course, or maybe they've got lots that never get very far.
Well, I complained to the Society of Homeopaths about Hendon Homeopath.
Right.
Because on their website they were making loads of claims like asthma, eczema, the standard ones, the ones that people have died because of, and they didn't do anything about it.
Yeah, that's certainly one of the things that Nightingale Collaboration will be looking into carefully, is how a lot of these organisations, what code of practice they've got and how effective they are at enforcing it. Obviously, it's their rules. It's up to them how they choose to enforce it. But if they don't appear to be enforcing it to a reasonable standard, then I think they might find that's going to be highlighted. There's no point having a code of practice, which of course is there primarily to tell the public that the practitioners are covered by a code of practice, a code of ethics and practice, as SOH calls it. So it is a marketing tool to a certain extent, but if it's not used effectively, then it's misleading, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed. Interesting.
So that's something that we will be doing, and we've already been testing that, but I shall say no more about that.
Oh,
What's this space?
spoilers!
Yes, not saying any more.
I've split our conversation with Alan into two halves because we talk about two different subjects. So, there, basically.
Hello and welcome to Super-Duper Woo-Fighting Duo.
With Capes.
Today we are having a bit of a conference call with our friend Hayley Stevens, who is a regular guest, presenter on Righteous Indignation podcast, which you should definitely listen to,
Yes.
and world-renowned ghost hunter.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome,
World-renowned.
Hayley.
I'm not quite sure that's true, but
I
I'll
think
go
it
with
probably
that.
is.
It will be true. There's a prediction for the future.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Marianne's
Will I make any money
psychic.
from it?
Yes, lots of money.
Excellent.
Right, Reese said that, not me.
Yeah, bear in mind that I'm not the psychic or future predictor here.
Right.
So, yes, we're here to talk with you about your drive to get more people for Wiltshire Phenomena Research.
Yes.
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 So do you want to explain what it is you do and maybe a little bit how you got into that?
Yeah, sure. Wiltshire Phenomena Research is based in Wiltshire, believe it or not, and we've been together since 2005, so just over 5.5 years now. And the aim of the organisation is to investigate supposed paranormal occurrences in the county of Wiltshire from a rational perspective. There's a lot of groups out there who don't necessarily investigate from a rational perspective, and they go out looking for a ghost, or they go out looking for proof that what is being reported is paranormal in nature. So we're kind of the rational equivalent of that, and we investigate everything from ghost sightings to UFO sightings, strange animals. We've got a few of those around here, believe it or not. The latest of which was an orangutan reporting in the next town over that somebody wanted us to go and look at. We're like, no, you're all right. Pass it on to someone more qualified. And yeah, also there's a lot of folklore around here as well that people tend to report as fact. So we just look at all sorts of claims that are made around here and try to get to the bottom of them, because a lot of them have rational causes that people often overlook.
I remember when I was younger, there was all the stuff about pumas and stuff being sighted in the countryside. That was always quite fun.
Yeah, we get quite a few sightings over here. We had I'm based in Bradford-on-Avon, and the county town of Wiltshire is Trowbridge, the next town over. And last year there was the Beast of Trowbridge that was seen by several eyewitnesses. One of them was my cousin, actually, which is quite weird. So you couldn't bring that up at any family parties because it's really awkward. And there was also we investigated a leopard sighting in Longleat Forest, and it got quite heated because we kind of merged with another team of researchers, and we had different opinions because they said that they'd found a leopard hair, and we said it probably wasn't a leopard hair, and it all just kind of blew up. But yeah, you get a lot of reportings like that.
Well, Longleat, though, you could get zoo escapees, I guess.
Yeah, you could. I hope not.
So, other than the hopefully obvious point that other teams go out to, confirm their hypothesis, they've already made their minds up before they go out. What is it that you do differently, and, what are the other problems with the other teams?
One of the biggest problems with paranormal research is that people don't think about the ethics of what they're doing and the ethical consequences. For example, some people report strange goings on happening in their homes, and if they've got children in their homes, then it may not be ethical to enter the home to conduct an investigation. If you then throw into the mix the fact that some investigators are biased and they use methods that kind of confirm their biases, confirm the conclusions they've already reached, that a ghost is to blame for the strange goings on, it becomes even more unethical, really. So Wiltshire Phenomena Research only really take on cases where we think it's suitable to do research into the case. Otherwise, we'll just kind of give advice on possible causes and possible ways to deal with what's happening. We don't really go looking for cases either. We used to, but then we found that we were just falling into the folklore trap, where you hear of a haunting, you hear of a story, and you go and investigate it, but actually all you're doing is investigating a folklore story that may not actually have any factual basis to it. And a lot of paranormal research teams do look for well-known hauntings, and they'll go into the building that has a famous haunting attached to it, and they'll know the stories, and then they will probably not purposefully, but they'll mislead themselves and others into believing that they've witnessed the ghosts that are said to haunt the place, and then the folklore just kind of carries on that way.
Right. So yeah, they just go in to confirm, even if they don't sort of intend to, or they don't know that they're doing it, subconsciously they might go and try to confirm their bias, sort of.
Yeah, sometimes they don't realise they're doing it. Some of the methods that they use, such as table tipping, there's another method which is called glass divination, where you literally just have an empty glass turned upside down and you put your finger on it, a bit like a Ouija board, just without the Ouija board. Mm-hmm. And then they'll ask any spirits that are with them or ghosts that are with them to move the glass to indicate if they're there or not. And sometimes the questions that they ask, such as, are you a lady, are you a man, are you happy, what year did you live in, was it the 1990s, or so on. Well, through those questions, they'll actually confirm what they already thought. So if they go into a house or a place that's haunted by a man, or is reputed, I should say, to be haunted by a man who died in the 1970s that was called John, they probably won't mean to, but when they do these methods, they'll actually communicate with the ghost of a man who died in the 1970s that was called John, and they just have that influence at the back of their minds. It's the idiomotor response, really. So Wiltshire Phenomena Research, we don't use any of those methods, and we also don't use any of the paranormal equipment that's quite popular, such as like EMF meters and thermometers and infrared cameras and things like that.
And the ghost box.
And the ghost box. Well, we've got a ghost box, but we certainly don't use it. We just have it for the laugh. And yes, we're quite different than a lot of teams because we don't have the equipment, we don't have those methods. We literally just kind of use our five senses, which is actually, it's still flawed because obviously our five senses can be fooled, but it's less likely that we're going to fool other people using our five senses and by noting down things that happen and just investigating what's happened from a rational point of view than if we start introducing pieces of equipment and methods that really are quite flawed.
Yeah, it reminds me of Billy Connolly's story where he was talking about his the castle that he used to live in, and they had a guest turret. And when they had people around to stay, he would ask them after the first night how they slept, and they said, "Oh, brilliant, thank you, it's lovely." And he said, "Oh, really? That's good," because people usually say that it's really bad and quite scary because we think we have a ghost. And then the next night they come down and he says, "How did you sleep?" And awful, I think the ghost was there.
Yeah. So it's amazing how it can play on your mind. There's a location that we investigate quite often. I mean, we've been going there for 2.5 years now, and it's a big fancy hotel, but they let us in because they have these strange stories attached to it, and they've got a room and it has a big sign outside it called the haunted bedroom, and you go in and it's really quite an old mysterious looking bedroom, and it's got the big 4-poster bed and the really heavy dark drapes at the windows. It's really cold in there anyway, but nothing's ever actually been experienced in there. It's not, it's got no ghost stories attached to that particular room. They just called it the haunted bedroom because it's a spooky looking room. And we're not the only paranormal team that go in there. Lots of other paranormal teams go in there as well. And the amount of anecdotes that come out of that particular room are crazy, simply because it's got the haunted bedroom sign outside it. And when you actually look back at the original eyewitness testimonies from the people that work at the location and have experienced weird stuff there, nothing's been experienced in that particular room, which I think speaks for itself. And it's really quite fascinating how the mind can fool you into thinking you've experienced something simply because you were expecting to, you've been told that you should.
bit like the placebo and nocebo effect with drugs and things.
Yeah.
So, you're on a recruitment drive, aren't you?
Yes, we are. Yes.
Yes.
We're hoping we've been receiving numerous applications already. Thankfully, there's only 4 or 5 members of the team at the moment, and some of those have like family commitments and work commitments that mean that not all members can always be available for a case if it's reported to us. So at the moment we're open to applications for anybody that wants to join the team, so that hopefully we can have a bigger number of people that we can contact to see if people are available for certain cases and stuff. So we've been open to applications for a couple of weeks now, and they're starting to flow in.
Excellent.
So, where can people find how to apply?
If they go to wiltshireparanormal.com, that's our website, and on there is a Join WPR tab. If they go there, there's a small application form. They just fill that out, it gets sent off to us. And then we, on January 31st, we're closing applications. Once that happens, we will then begin the second round of the recruitment process. And that's likely, it hasn't been confirmed at the moment, but that's likely to be an interview in maybe a one-on-one or a two-on-one setting. And then I would imagine that will probably lead on to an on-site kind of trial run. So they'll come along to one of our investigations, and we can see how they work with the team and how the team works with them, and see what works well and everything. But if they just go to our website, wiltshireparanormal.com, fill in the application form, and we'll get in touch with them.
Excellent. So, sounds fun.
Yeah, it's fun. It's nothing like what you see on television. A lot of people, I mean, some of the applications we've gotten through are from people, it seems, they think that we're a bit like Most Haunted and ghost hunters that you see on living TV. It's not like that at all, really. Again, like I mentioned before, we don't use the equipment that they use. We don't use the spiritualist methods. We certainly don't. Sometimes we will investigate in the dark if the ghost has been witnessed in the dark, because one thing we like to do is to try and replicate the situation something was experienced in as much as we can. However, that also means that if somebody witnessed a ghost at 10 o'clock in the morning, then we'll be at the location at 10 o'clock in the morning, because a mistake that a lot of teams make is that they go to investigate a ghost, but they do it at the wrong time of the day. A lot of teams tend to prefer to investigate in the night when it's more spooky. Even if the ghost has been seen during the day, and we don't think that's really, it doesn't do anything to help try and get to the bottom of what's been experienced.
Yeah, if you're going to try and replicate an experiment, as it were, and someone's done it at 37 degrees and you do it at 15 and wonder why it hasn't worked, then that's your fault.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So people who do apply need to be aware that it may be that they'll be at a location in the morning, and with the lights on, and it won't be as spooky as anything you see on television, because obviously these television shows are for entertainment. They kind of dress everything up to be a lot more dramatic than it is. The reality is that you will possibly end up just sitting in a room for a couple of hours just twiddling your thumbs, really. But that it does pay off, because there's nothing like getting to the bottom of something and working out why something strange has happened. I'm a big fan of Jonathan Creek on television, and I often say to people it's a little bit like Scooby-Doo crossed with Jonathan Creek. And it really is. It's that moment when you go, actually, this is obviously what's caused this, and they can see where you're coming from. Then it can stop them being scared and worried, and it's quite rewarding that way. And I won't lie, it does make you feel a bit smart. So that's the plus side of being involved.
Ah, good. So we'll put all the links to your website and where people can apply in the show notes and on our websites. Thank you for joining us, Hayley Stevens.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much.
So here is part 2 of our talk with Alan Hennis. I do apologise for the introduction to the topic. The MJ Andrew Wakefield!
I must admit, Wakefield's case is not something I know an awful lot about, other than sort of passing familiarity with the nonsense he produced. But I think what Fiona Godley was saying was quite interesting. And I must admit, I've not read the whole article yet. Not had time. Been busy with other things today. So I'm not sure what is new. I think we all knew most of what's been said.
I think it's just interesting that the BMJ has published what's essentially a bit of journalism, because the original paper was published in the Lancet. And that it's come out now, I guess, because of the ruling recently. But
and what they say was drawing on interviews, documents, and data made public at the GMC hearings. And imagine there was, although that was last year, there was a lot of stuff to go through. So maybe it's taken Brian Deere a while to actually sift through it all, although he's obviously more familiar with it than most. And it was interesting, this is the first of a series of articles. I don't know how many there's going to be on over the next few weeks.
Ooh, that is going to be interesting.
So.
Yes, it was good when Brian went to Westminster Skeptics, and he went through some of the documents and stuff that he had on Wakefield, and that he'd been funded for nearly £500,000 by the Legal Aid Fund, and he was paid £150 an hour plus expenses.
Yeah. And also, wasn't he trying to patent his own single vaccines to replace the MMR? So the company wanting to market these said, where if you can basically discredit the one that's currently there, then we can roll these out. I think it's disgraceful. Andrew Wakefield didn't seem to be. He just seemed to be in it for the money, really.
Definitely. It's just, I don't know. I think he's way past the point of no return. That's the thing. He still insists it's all lies and that Deere's been paid by someone to go out and ruin him and that kind of stuff. But he
must obviously. I think maybe he's sort of gone so far that he's actually starting to believe that there's a big conspiracy against him.
I suspect, although I've not read an awful lot about Wakefield, that you get to the point, however you got to the position of coming up with that paper and writing it. Once you've gone far, that far, it must have been very difficult to turn, even if he wanted to turn around and say, yeah, you're right, it wasn't a good paper, or I did this with paid the kids to take the blood samples, etc., etc. You come to a point where it's actually easier to go on with the lie, if you like, rather than admit it.
Yeah, I think Brian said he believes that Wakefield is some sort of pathological liar.
I think
whether that's partly as a result of this case as
well. Yeah. So, well, someone asked.
Too charitable to him.
No, someone asked at Skeptics whether Brian thought that Wakefield had set out to be deceptive and fraudulent to the level that we see nowadays, or did it just snowball by accident? And Brian said that Andrew Wakefield had taken a book from the library called Field's Virology, and what he'd learned from that, he decided to conclude that measles caused Crohn's disease, which Reese knows all about, obviously. And we know that's not the case. And it's certainly not a crime to discover the cause of something, as long as you have evidence that that's the case, which obviously it isn't. And he then deliberately went out and found these children to prove his foregone conclusion.
The thing is,
he was trying to prove his hypothesis rather than disprove it.
Well, the thing is that there was only 13 kids in there as well, or
12,
or something, a very small number, basically.
12.
Okay, 12. Gosh, we're like an angry couple sometimes.
You are sleeping on the sofa.
But the thing is that he lied about the data from the kids. Most of the kids. I think on the question of how many had these symptoms showing after the MMR jab, most of them were no, and there were only a few question marks there.
children 4, 8 and 11 had symptoms before they received the vaccine, and for 2 of them it was months after they'd got it.
Yeah.
3 of the children didn't even have autism. 1 of the 12 had regressive autism. Which most people... there's a guy I watched on one of the CBC or NBC reports. There was a parent just randomly on the news saying, oh, you know, these parents, they all sat back and watched their kids regress after they had the vaccine, and I haven't read it, it's not true.
I think it's just... I mean, there's always been anti-vax people and anti-vaccination. It's not a new thing. But Andrew Wakefield doing what he didn't exactly help the cause, which is...
Well, he made it global,
well, yeah.
As much as we would say.
What I don't seem to understand is why people can't understand that single vaccinations are no better or worse, because at the end of the day, a vaccination doesn't the MMR contain attenuated strains of the things, and there's such a low amount or such a small amount of actual pathogen in there that it's not overloading the immune system, so to speak, with any sort of vaccination schedule, because you encounter so many more pathogenic materials day to day. I don't understand why people can't understand that.
I understand that what the science really is, but putting yourself in the position of somebody. This is the second time I've done this now. Try to of a parent. If somebody comes to you and said, "Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, Reese, about children exposed to all sorts of pathogens, but they're not getting injected into their bloodstream," and that is it's like another huge step, isn't it? It's not just they're breathing stuff in. This stuff's getting injected into them, and it's got mercury. I think it's all these other things. You can understand parents, particularly those of us who are parents. When it is your child, you do look at things differently, particularly if you've really got no science and medical background. It's very easy to be persuaded about these things, I think. So I don't really blame any of the parents.
Oh, no, I don't blame the parents. It's just, it doesn't, when people, they continually say, even after people have explained to them many, many times, well, actually they encounter more. But I think as you said, it's probably more that it's being injected into them rather than they're breathing in things, even though that will, can also get things into the bloodstream. It's not quite as symbolic as an injection.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's far more invasive to have something injected into your tiny little baby's blood. So yeah, it is different.
Something that I find quite strange about it, and I've had this conversation with a few people, is the desperation to they act almost like autism, some kind of severely debilitating disability, or the worst possible thing that could happen. And obviously, it's always really difficult to deal with finding out that your child's disabled. And I have a lot of respect for people who do deal with it, but I don't know, I find it kind of sad that they say, that my child's changed and it's all gone wrong, and they're so desperate to blame someone and to act like it's some kind of disease. And I don't know, I feel like it's based on a real lack of understanding of the kind of mental state that autism is.
Yes, yeah. I think part of it is it's the guilt's maybe too strong a word. I'm not sure that's the right word anyway. That it's something that they did or they didn't do. If your child is born handicapped in some way or other, then vast majority of parents perfectly rightly accept that as it is, and they love them just as much, and they bring them up, whatever that disability is. But it's when you're told, or it's something that you suspect, or you're told that maybe it was that injection you gave them or you let them have that caused it, then if that happened to my kids when they were wee, I would be incredibly angry with myself if I thought it was something I had done that had I understand what you're saying about the kids. Harmed the kids in that way, or it changed them in some profound way. If you don't have the knowledge or experience of medicine or science to understand about vaccines, then you because it's your baby, you are going to be persuaded very, very easily.
What's also strange though is the sort of vehemence with which people will defend Wakefield and say, there's nothing wrong with his study and all this kind of thing, and big pharma's out to get him, and yet they're very ready to attack other real scientists and say that they're just working for big pharma and their study's rubbish, even though it's an actual study. It's strange how they pick the people to support.
I think this is a very good case for doing public science communication.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes, yeah. I mean, the key to a lot of it, I think you're right, is science education and just explaining what it's all about. And certainly on television here, the BBC, they've done a lot over this last year, haven't they, with science programs. Hopefully, I've got some people a bit more interested in science.
Sorry, can you just say that? Can you just say the bit more interesting science bit again?
Completely broke up.
Yep. Oh dear. You were breaking up there, Marianne. Is everybody okay now?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean the BBC have produced a lot. The BBC have produced a lot of programs recently on various science subjects, including the fantastic stargazing one just last 3 nights. And hopefully it does make people stop and think, and as Professor Brian Cox said last night, or Dara O'Brien, just look up into the sky. That's all you need. Just look at that and think about what's there and what those stars are and those constellations are, and make people think about how we know these things. How do we find out about what's up there? It's not just a crystal sphere of or a carbon black thing with spots of light in it. It's real stars like the one that's just down the road from us. And just get people to think about these things. And there's these programs that were on tonight about intelligence and the brain were fascinating. Certainly, and it was what was quite interesting was they showed excerpts from various BBC Horizon programs from a good number of years ago. And of course, there's been a lot of criticism of Horizon over the last few years anyway, but dumbing down rather a lot. I think that was dumbing down to the audience, what they thought the audience wanted. But I think it's good to see a lot of better quality science programs, general science programs that are of interest to a lot of people.
Meow, 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 meow.
Thank you, Alan, for chatting to us today.
Not at all, it's a pleasure.
It's been very interesting talking with you about skeptic-y things.
It's a bit strange not being in the pub with the pint, but
It is a bit, yes, yeah.
It's not strange for me.
It's not strange for you.
No. When you grow up.
Yeah. Only a couple of years.
And of course, yep. For those going to QADCon in less than 4 weeks. Yep.
How exciting!
Yes. If you've seen the program, I'm doing one of the sessions on Nightingale collaboration. So I better go on and write it.
I'll do my best to blog some of the sessions and chat to some people while I'm there. So. And
you will get interviews for our podcast, definitely.
Someone needs to send me some recording doodads.
You've got your phone.
My phone's no good.
Yeah, it is. It's fine. So there.
That's our fault.
Yeah. See, I'm being bossy again.
Yeah.
Say hello, record things for our podcast.
Well, anyway, yes.
Thank you very much, Alan.
Not at all. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
So we hope you've enjoyed this episode. We'll have another guest episode next week where we've got Stephen Rooney of the Irish Skeptics. and we'll be talking about, again, more various skeptic-y things. You can find Hayley Stevens' blog at ratherfriendlyskeptic.wordpress.com or follow her on Twitter at Hayley Stevens. You can find Alan Henness on Twitter at Zeno001, or you can find his blog at zenosblog.com. I've been Rhys Morgan, and you can find me on Twitter at Rhys Morgan, and my blog, thewelshbird.co.uk. And you can find Marianne on Twitter at Noodlemaz, or her blog noodlemaz.wordpress.com. We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. If you have enjoyed it, again, reviews and ratings on iTunes would be very much appreciated. Thank you for listening, and goodbye.